You won't believe how much the subject of finance affects the games that we play.
I'm talking about this.
Welcome to the Crunch Button. That's right, welcome back to the Crunch Button, where we pull back the digital curtain and talk about how games are made in professional development studios. My name is Nathan Baseley. I've been a producer and a game director for over 17 years. And today we're going to be talking about finance and how it affects the games that we play. Now we're going to do this in two parts. Today we're going to talk about the business model, and then in a future part we'll talk about how that affects game developers. Now understanding finance is key to understanding professional game development studios. We're going to take a high look at costs, funding and revenue and how these three things affect the games that we play. I'm going to begin by means of comparison with a completely different product. Let's look at a power drill that retails for about the same price as a brand new game today, £70 price point in the UK. By the way, I'll tend to use these examples in pounds because I'm in the UK. I may also use dollars, but whatever I do, I'll try and be clear with our examples. So a £70 power drill in the UK, it breaks down a bit like this. So £11.67 goes on sales tax or VAT. The retailer takes around about 20%, which is £14.58. That covers their cost of sales, their distribution between stores and their profit. The remaining £43.75 goes to the manufacturer, with around about £39.38 covering their cost of sales, leaving a remainder of just over £4 for net profit. Okay, so a £70 product leads to around about £4 net profit. Now a product like this will sell something like 100,000 units per year, giving a net profit of over £400,000, and it has some seasonality. For example, Easter is a bit of a peak and summer will be a bit of a dip for power drills. And this product will tend to be replaced after between 5 and 10 years. So during this time, during this 5 to 10 year window, they'll be able to respond to the market in numerous ways. They'll be able to run promotions. They'll be able to find cost savings in the product. They'll be able to, for example, change manufacturer of the switch from one company to another and save some money, which will put up their net profit. They'll be able to make variations of the product. For example, they might be able to do a pack-in with the drill and some drill bits, or they might make a version with a longer cable. Now, this product doesn't just fall out of the sky. It is designed. A company like this probably has similar products, but nonetheless, they will have to invest in a product designer's time, an engineer's time, getting approvals, the tooling, installing production lines, origination for packaging, and so on. So maybe they spend something like £200,000 to £300,000, and if they're developing a range of drills, then that investment cost will be spread across a number of products. Now, some companies take that investment and they amortize it. That is, they figure out how many units they think they're going to sell and divide that investment cost across that number. Let's say they think they want to recoup that 200,000 in 1 year. They think they're going to sell 100,000, so they put £2 as a cost of product on every unit. And once they've recouped, they either take that off the cost of the product to their customers, or it's additional net profit for them. Other businesses will just write it off. They'll treat it as investment in the business and they will ignore it as a product cost. Now, the main trick with businesses like this is about cash flow. Do they have enough cash to pay the suppliers? It's a business where sales of existing products provides the revenue to keep making and selling more products. Now, this example of a drill will apply to many other products, from shoes to soap, books, guitars, wallets, televisions, each with its own balance of cost, profit, tax and life cycle, but all using the same principle. Now, we're not here to talk about drills, we're here to talk about video games, and by comparison, video games are wildly different. Now, as we go through, remember the distinction we made in episode 2 between developers and publishers. So the developer is the group of people who make the game, and the publisher is the group of people who sell the game, and most critically for this episode are often the group that fund development. Now, the first way in which video game economics differ is the cost breakdown of the retail product. Now, in the drill example, if we try to pay back our development cost in the first year, then as we said, we amortize about £2 per unit, or £2 out of that £70 represents the cost of the design. Okay, it's about 3% of the product value in this case. The biggest proportion of the cost of the product is the components. That is, when you're paying £70, the majority of that money goes on the box, the cable, the switch, the motor, and so on, the things that you're actually buying. Now, with video games, it's reversed. If you think about a physical product in a store with a plastic box, an inner sleeve, a disc, the cost of those components is relatively small compared to the cost of the product. It's something like between £3 and £8, and it's extremely low for digital. Instead, everything that comes back to the publisher will be paying back the development cost. And that's because the development costs are extremely high. A typical AAA title will cost in the region of $200 to $250 million, excluding marketing. There are smaller recent examples of games like Black Myth Wukong, which was AAA production quality but was in the press for having a low development costs. Some reported at 43 million, some at 70 million, but it is still tens of millions of dollars for one game. That's a huge amount of money. Now, what this means compared to our drill example is that publishers must sell a vast amount of units to break even. On the flip side, and unlike the drill, once the product has broken even, it's nearly pure profit, because the cost of the sales is so small. There's little middle ground other than perhaps playing around with the marketing costs. Now, the second big difference is product life cycle. In our drill example, as well as many other products from pens to furniture to bicycles, the product can be around for years. The business can focus on promotions, getting new listings, and making the product more profitable. They can respond to the market. They can see what's selling and where. They can tinker with prices. Now, video games, the first few weeks contain the vast majority of the sales. Now, yes, there are opportunities to promote, and we've all seen sales in the digital stores. But the way that sales skew to the launch date and rapidly drop off marks games out as different to many other consumer products. Now, just imagine if you get the timing wrong. If you launch your brand new game on the same day that the new Mario Kart comes out and people buy that instead of your game, why do you think that publishers tend to avoid the summer when they release new games? It's because people are on holiday or are outside. With a significant number of people away, they miss this tiny window, and they just can't afford to take that risk. Now, the third big difference with our retail drill example is that retail prices tend to be set with video games, or at the very least, highly established. Whilst it's technically possible to launch at different prices, the industry has an established price point for new games. And just because your budget was high, or perhaps your forecasts aren't big enough, you can't adjust your retail price accordingly. That is, you can't say, oh, we were aiming for 500,000 forecast, we now think it's going to be 250,000, therefore we'll just sell our game for 140 quid. It doesn't work like that. And this only becomes harder with fewer retailers in the scene exerting more control over the market. The last big difference is that with short product life cycles and long development timescales, developers have very few active products, if any at all. Outside of the launch window, you basically have zero revenue generating products. The only product you have is the one that you're developing that's costing you money. So, for example, if it takes you 3 years to make a game and you're selling most of your units in the first 3 months, well, 6 months later, you're not generating any revenue, but you are incurring costs for your next game. This differs completely from the companies making drills. Not only do they have months and months and months to adjust the product offering to the consumers, they probably have an existing range that buffers any underperformance in the new product that they're launching. They've got time to fail. In other words, their product can underperform, but their business should be okay because they have got an existing range that's generating revenue. All of these elements add up to an extremely high-risk business, one that demands massive upfront investment with the narrowest opportunity to generate money. It's too significant for developers to undertake by themselves, and that's why they need assistance from publishers and investors for funding. With companies who have extremely large coffers, They are able to accept the risk specifically by investing in multiple developers and therefore multiple titles. This reduces the consequence of one or two games underperforming, providing that overall their portfolio succeeds. Other ways of mitigating these risks include making the launch pad longer. For example, wish lists and pre-orders extends that launch window before the game comes out, and things like free DLC or a DLC roadmap can extend it forwards. Similarly, Game of the Year editions or special editions give you additional opportunities potentially to relaunch your title. And of course, mitigations that reduce the development cost before the release, such as early access and launching with a minimum viable product. Okay, so that's the introduction, part one for finance, explaining hopefully the business model, how it is so different to other consumer products and how it manifests in an extremely large amount of risk, but also opportunity, and why therefore that is that us game developers rely on publishers and investors. Now I'm going to sidestep the free-to-play live service behemoths like Fortnite. They are extremely successful, they're worth talking about separately, but they don't represent how most game business models work. Now in the next episode we will talk specifically about how all of this detail that we've just covered affects development teams and ultimately affects the games that you and I love to play. So hopefully see you again. Please comment and like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. Let me know what you're enjoying and if you have any questions. Thank you so much.